Today we're going to talk about an intriguing new variation on a popular sport that is taking off, particularly with baby boomers. In the UK, the USA, and here in Australia, 1 in 5 people is a baby boomer. That is, someone born between 1945 and 1964. This is important for everyone because as people get older and the body doesn't work as well as it does in youth, the longer older people stay fit and healthy and engaged, the better it is for everyone. Fit people have better health outcomes when they do get sick, and a healthy individual does not require anything like the expensive and ongoing health care as some who have health conditions that may be directly or indirectly related to lifestyle choices. There is a new model of ageing that encourages that one should be active and vital for as long as possible. I think that makes sense. The nursing home can wait. It has been said that movement is medicine. To that end, what's the world's most popular sport, both in terms of participants and spectators? Do you know? Yes, that's right. It's football. Some call it soccer, but it'll be called football on my show. Football has 1 billion more adherents than the number 2 sport, which is cricket. Every 4 years, the Football World Cup attracts billions of viewers, and the 2022 World Cup final is listed as the most watched sporting event in history. But people like to play football, not just watch it. Today we're going to talk about a form of football that allows everyone to keep playing football into their 50s, 60s, and even their 70s. There is a relatively new and rapidly growing form of football called walking football. What is walking football? What's the story? With me today is Chris Casanatari. Did I pronounce that right? No, I didn't.
Casatari.
Sorry.
No, just Casatari.
Casatari.
That's
Casatari.
perfect.
A man who has been instrumental in organising walking football in his part of the world, and he's going to tell us all about it. Chris, welcome.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Sorry about that mispronunciation, but I got your first name right, didn't I?
You have. And you're not the only person who's ever mispronounced my surname.
Okay, good. First of all, before we unpack this game, I'm sure you'll agree that walking football falls very much under the umbrella of the oft-stated principles of healthy ageing, which involves moving the body, prioritising mental and physical health, and nurturing relationship with others.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Walking football is a sport that was designed, developed, invented, whichever term you want to use, by people who are interested in trying to keep older people in society engaged in activity and sport. In fact, it's referred to in the walking football community as the 3 Fs. That is, let's focus on fun, friendship, and fitness. And if we can focus on those 3 things, then the person involved will be physically and mentally well and have a good lifestyle that allows them to engage with other people and enjoy themselves. And after all, after working for as long as we all have, we all reach that point where enjoying yourself is the number 1 priority.
Yeah, okay. I think most people would be well aware or basically aware of the normal 11-a-side football. So can you just take us through the basic rules and how's it different from your 11-a-side football?
Well, as you have said, this is walking football. So the principal difference between association football, the 11-a-side football, and walking football is that all the players walk, and you're not allowed to run, and you're called up for running, and an indirect free kick's awarded if you do run. The intent is to reduce the risk of injury in the game, and the best way to do that is to take the force or power out of collisions, because contact results in injury, and if we are walking, we have much more chance of avoiding that collision and therefore having a game that is built around the skills of football without the power or physicality of the game. And let's face it, the older you get, the longer it takes for us to recover from injury. So it makes more sense to have a sport where you are not spending as much time colliding or bashing or hitting other people and getting injuries to yourself or to them. So as far as the rules themselves are concerned, all the other rules are designed around ensuring there's more safety in the game, but that change in focus also ensures there's more precision and skill required in the game as well. So the ball typically is not to go over the height of the goal, which in most cases is lower than the head height of an individual, and the idea is to stop people getting hit in the head or potentially knocking them over as they're older.
So there's no heading at all?
There's no heading at all. There's no tackling from the side, no tackling from behind. If you tackle from the front, you can tackle for the ball, but you can't collide with the leg of the player who you're tackling, so that there is, as much as possible, no contact. So typically you would know in football that people will often jostle for the ball by pushing shoulder on shoulder as they move towards getting a ball that's in space. Well, that's not accepted in walking football either. So that, again, we are doing everything we can to take away contact collision. You can't slide tackle, you can't tackle or kick the ball if you happen to be on the ground, and everything is done at a walking pace. But what that means is it's much harder to play a pass into space because it tends to go out, as it takes much longer for a person to be able to move to the ball. So you have to hold on to the ball a little longer and pass the ball to feet as much as possible.
Because it's played on a much smaller area. Would it be about the quarter of the size of a normal football pitch?
It's probably slightly smaller than a quarter of a size. Typically, it would be 40 to 45 metres long and 20 to 25 metres wide. So if you can imagine that, that would fit inside a quarter of the field, but not go right to the edges, because a typical football field would be over 100 metres long and around 50 metres wide.
And how many per team?
It's a six-a-side game, fundamentally, although any number from 4 to 7 can play the game practically. And that's great because it provides for different varieties. And if different numbers of people turn up at venues, then you can find a combination that suits everybody. Typically, when the game was first invented, it was a game without goalkeepers, and it allowed people to play on the field and pass the ball to encourage that movement and activity that's required to promote and sustain good health for people.
Okay. It must be hard not to run. I mean, you're so used to seeing a ball and running after it with the 11-a-side football. So, and I have in my research, I've seen some walking football, and some of the people, they walk very, very quickly. They're just this side of running. Would you agree?
Yeah, without doubt. And I'd even suggest that in some of the videos you've seen, there will be people who are actually running, who shouldn't be running, but the referee, for whatever reason, hasn't seen it or hasn't picked it up. It can be challenging as a referee to see people who are running off the ball in particular. But yes, what happens, I think, is when you first start playing the game, you fall into your natural habits of movement if you've played the game. And over time, as referees pick you up, or teammates or people on the other team pick you up for running, you realise that that's actually what you're doing, and you try to change. And hopefully over a shorter period of time, people start walking a lot more. And the more we can get people to walk, the more enjoyable the game is for everybody.
And I believe that you don't have to have a background in football as such to take up walking football at any age.
No, that's 100% right. And everybody who is involved in walking football just loves the idea of playing the game, and we want as many people as possible to play the game. This is not a sport just for ex-professional football players. It's also for first-time people. And in our club, we have 25% of the people who have never played football before, and of those, 50% of them have actually never played sport before, because they grew up in an era, as we did, where women in particular didn't play as much sport as they perhaps do today.
Mm. So, as you've been saying, a lot of the rules you're talking about are designed to minimise impact and injury, heading the ball, tackling, just falling over for people, as we've said, in the latter part of their life. It could be a recipe for all sorts of things. So, and you were telling me before, it must be really something to see, say, a mother or a grandmother who has probably spent time watching their kids or others play football to pull on the boots in their 60s and go and play. That's quite extraordinary, really.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to see, part of the joy of playing a sport is to see other people who perhaps haven't played it for as long, have an entry-level skill set, and see how their skill level grows and improves over time. You kind of feel satisfied and proud of people who start not being able to even trap a ball or not being able to kick a ball, and then within a matter of weeks or a month are at a point where they can trap the ball, pass it to somebody else. Maybe the finer parts of the game they still haven't got, but they're well on the way. And you see the smiles and the joy in people's faces from playing the game. And, it's a wonderful experience to be part of that and to see it happening. And if I go back for a moment to what I said before about the concept of fun, friendship, and fitness, then all of those are encapsulated in those activities of playing with people who are less experienced and watching them grow and develop and improve their skill sets. Plus, the game improves as the poorest players or the least experienced players in the team improve their skill sets. So everybody's enjoying it and having fun in that sort of circumstance.
Yeah, two things I've observed in what I've seen, because there's walking football on YouTube, etc., is there's quite a bit of skill there, because it is in a small space. You're not sort of hoofing it way upfield in full field football, and also too, because it's a team sport. I've always thought the thing is about team sports. If, say, I'm in a baseball team, I'm in the batting box alone. At a cricket crease, I'm alone. If I've got a golf club, I'm alone, even if I'm part of a team. But if, say, in a football game, I'm in trouble, my teammate can actually help me. So I think that you got the combination there of the good players and the more experienced players and the players just learning the game, that you can actually really help someone. Like, you can't actually help someone swing their golf club or their tennis racket. They have to do that themselves. But in soccer, I think that's, or football and team sports on a field, that's one of the big advantages, that as you're saying, that the better players can lift the newer players.
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't agree more. And it's part of the fun of playing. Perhaps when we were younger, we were interested in winning all the time and hated to lose. As you get older, you stop wanting or needing to play for sheep stations, as the saying goes, and you find your joy and enthusiasm in the sport in many ways. And one of those ways is to see people who are new to the sport grow and learn and participate, and to see the joy on people's faces. And certainly, if an inexperienced player or even a good player is in a position where there are people putting pressure on them, you can move even at walking pace and get to a position where someone can pass you the ball and relieve their moment of pressure, and then they can move to another space. But the joy of football for me is that it's a team sport, and a good team beats a team of individuals. And perhaps there are other sports where a genius performance by an individual will result in them winning a game. That can happen in football, but it's less often. And it's much more likely that the team wins because they combine well. They defend as a group. Even when there's only 6 players in a team, if those players don't defend as a unit and move the ball and pass the ball as a unit and attack and score as a unit, it tends not to be a game where you're going to win it or a game where you're going to be competitive, because the other team will be doing those things.
Yeah, I think in many human endeavours, people working together can be greater than the sum of their parts. Who thought this up? Where did this walking football thing first come about? Whose idea was it?
Well, it appears that the person who was most responsible for the introduction of walking football into our society today was a man by the name of John Croot, Croot. John Croot was a CEO of a business in Chesterfield in the UK that was aligned with Chesterfield Football Club. And they were looking at things that they could do to get people to continue to stay active, to exercise, to enjoy themselves and have fun. And of course, as they were from a football community, one of the things that they focused on was how could they allow people, as they got older, to continue to stay engaged and connected with football. And as part of the community trust of the Chesterfield Football Club, they came up with this idea, John did, of taking the speed out of the game by shifting from running to walking, reducing the contact that goes in the game by those actions of stopping tackling from the side and behind, and at the same time still relying on the skill, because people who play football wanted to still have that enjoyment of a great pass, a good tackle from the front, a good shot on goal, a nice save by the goalkeeper, whatever it may be. So all of those elements were part of the design from John, and this sport came about. That was back in 2010 that he started to have these ideas, and by 2011, the first practice games, competitions, etc., started in England. In Australia, it took much longer for us to become aware of this because it grew organically, and we became more aware of it in the late 2010. So about 2018, 2019, there was a lot more activity in Australia in the walking football area, and people started to set up little groups. And by 2020, 2021, there were many groups around the country who were playing walking football in their own little community, their own city, town, and so on. And then it's developed from there now to where there is a national body, there are some state bodies in different states, and we have a very large number of participants, in the thousands now, 10,000 plus participants playing walking football.
Yeah, because I believe there's tournaments all over the world, and I'd assume that it would get a bit more competitive if if people are getting on planes and flying over to, well, say, represent their country. And so it's played worldwide, but is there an overall, like FIFA looks after association football, is there something like that in walking football?
My view would be to say that the sport's still in development phase. It's still in that early development phase. There are a number of international bodies that claim to be the international walking football body and run tournaments internationally, have a set of rules for the game. But there's more than one, unfortunately. And as a consequence of that, while it's unfortunate that the rules of the game from the different bodies may not be 100% the same, they're fairly close. And while some countries are aligned to one of the organisations and some countries are aligned to another organisation, the good thing for us is that there are perhaps more international tournaments to play in. And therefore more people can get involved. For me, I think the opportunity of playing walking football for people who have been competitive in sport in the past is that you get the chance to travel the world, go to a country that you perhaps haven't been to, or one that you've been to previously, and you may even know people in that country, and you get to play the sport that you love with people who are passionate about that sport, and you form new friendships. So again, if you're thinking of that concept of fun, friendship, and fitness, you're very much able to travel the world, have fun playing walking football, form friendships with people from overseas, and add to that fitness level, because, as you rightly say, the competitiveness of the sport increases in international tournaments. Really, that's up to referees, though, because if referees follow the rules of the game and we focus on reducing contact and reducing running, the likelihood of injury, even in internationally competitive games, reduces significantly.
So it sounds a bit like the boxing. They have all those different sort of federations. So probably down the track you might get some uniformity, I'd imagine.
We'd love to see it just so there's a single set of rules.
Yes.
And at the moment there's work being done here to try and standardise and align and get consistency in those rules. But I should say they're not fundamentally different. The principal rules of no running, no tackling from the side and behind, the height at which the ball can go before it becomes an indirect free kick, etc. All those things are pretty much the same in every one of the international tournaments I've been fortunate enough to go to. But sometimes there are differences with, say, for example, what happens when the goalkeeper receives the ball or the goalkeeper makes a save. In those circumstances, the interpretation of the rules may differ from one of the associations to the other.
Okay. You yourself, you have a background in football, don't you?
Yes. I was fortunate enough, I guess, to come from a family that was football mad, and as a consequence, it was my sport of choice from a very young age. And at 8, I started playing football, and I played representative football as a 10-year-old, and then continued through that to play at the highest level here in Australia. At the age of 19, had the good fortune to spend some time training with West Ham United in the UK due to some connections that my family had with the Hammers. And I then had opportunities to play for 10 years or so at that level. And unlike today, sport was not particularly well funded when I was going through playing sport. And therefore, when I got into my late 20s, having got married and got a promotion in work, I had to make the decision to not play at that level anymore, because I had to pay off a mortgage. I had kids that started to come along, and all those things impacted on my ability to keep playing at a serious semi-professional, professional level. I was a goalkeeper, so for me, it's a unique, strange world playing as a goalkeeper in football, but it's something that you love doing. And but walking football has been fantastic. Great opportunity to get back and play football again in my older years.
Yeah, and I believe a lot of people come to their walking football as a couple.
Yes.
Partners, husband, wife.
Exactly, yes. In fact, my wife and I play walking football together. We've travelled overseas to competitions together and played, which has been fantastic. Around Australia to different states, we've played walking football together. So it's been fantastic as a way of strengthening our relationship. And our club that we run has around 70 people in it. About 28 of those, so 14 couples, are part of that 70 people. So you can see it's nearly 40% or around 40% of the participation in our club is due to couples. And it's a great way of those couples, finding something they like to do together and to actually do together.
And they play in mixed teams because you're not having, a little lady being knocked down by a guy literally twice the size.
Yeah, and the rules of the game are designed so that we can manipulate them to make it safer when there's mixed games being played. But there are women's competitions, men's competitions, and also there are mixed competitions, both of a competitive level and also of a social level. In fact, I would say that the walking football community very much follows the principles that apply in international organisations like the World Masters Games authorities, where there are competitive level tournaments, and at those same tournaments in parallel there are social competitions where people get to play in against other social players, and there are rules that limit, well, you've played so much and you've been at this level, therefore you've got to play competitive. You're a first timer, you're new to the sport, you can play social. So and walking football's a lot like that, so that we can keep people. We'd like to see everybody play walking football and have fun and enjoy it. And we can find a way where you can do that competitively, either in the club or in Australia-wide competitions or international competitions. There are opportunities for people there. And how good is it to be able to say to your family, guess what, I've just been selected to go and play in a tournament in Perth, or a tournament in Queensland when you live in, say, Sydney. Or alternately, how great is it to say, I'm actually off to Sweden next year to play in a walking football tournament, or something like that. And I'd like to think that over time, everyone who plays walking football gets the opportunity, be it competitive or social, to travel with this sport in their older years and enjoy the experience of playing with people they've not met before. And for me, mental health is very important to people who play sport, and older people, it's very important to focus on not just their physical well-being, but also their mental state, particularly for couples as they age and their skill differences may be significant in what they can actually do as they as people get older. Also, men and women who are single, they've been divorced or their partner's passed away. It's an activity where they can engage, connect, and again rebuild friendships. As I said before, the more that we can get people to participate and join in, and the more they have fun doing it, and that's why fun's a principal requirement of playing our sport of walking football, the more that people will strengthen relationships with other people.
Yes, but we haven't mentioned this yet, but am I right in saying if people are thinking, oh, this sounds like a bit of fun, I'm going to go to the garage and dust off my football boots with my studs? It is not football boots, is it?
No. The aim is again to remove from the sport risks of people being injured. So football studs, as you know, being hard and tough, and designed principally to give you balance in mud or damp surfaces, also run the risk of scarring the leg of a person, or if you tackle from the front in a clumsy or inappropriate way and more physical way. So we play with shoes that are designed for synthetic surfaces or for good grass surfaces, dimple-soled shoes, shoes for futsal or other sports like that. And we find that works really well. And they're also much, much safer, and they help people ensure that if someone does run their boot down your leg, it's most unlikely that you're going to get hurt from that.
Yeah, in the video I saw, it looked like some people were just wearing trainers.
Yeah, you can do.
Okay. And I mean, some sports are expensive, like say golf. A decent pair of golf clubs will cost you about, well, in Australian dollars, about say 2,000, and then there may be a membership of a golf course. I mean, oh, Chris, it cost me so much to just moor my yacht, the mooring fees. And don't get me started about my race horses. I'm not even allowed to ride them. I have to get jockeys to do that. I'm joking about all that, of course. But it's not really an expensive undertaking other than to get shoes to play in at a social level.
When John Crute came up with the concept of the game, the initial fees charged back in 2011 in the UK was £2 a game. And the concept was to take a very low dollar figure amount and get as many people as possible playing in that. Here we are, 13 going on for 14 years later, and the fee we charge for people to come is $5 midweek and $10 on the weekend per person, per game.
Court hire.
That's right.
Yeah.
It covers, and that's where the price difference comes from. It comes from the cost of the court hire. So our aim is to keep the cost as low as possible. We're a not-for-profit organisation. We have no requirement, therefore, to shareholders or others to make profit or to provide dividends or other things that potentially result in a need for prices to be continuously raised. We haven't raised our prices since we started back in the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue for a while yet.
So it's a sporting bargain. So what's the future? You've told me, you've indicated that your numbers, they're not just creeping up, that it's on a fairly sharp trajectory. So where do you see the immediate future of walking football? Onward and upward?
Yeah, I think that's certainly right. We've already reached the point where today the calendar is full of competitions that we could play in, be it within our club or against other clubs or in tournaments that are being held within Australia or overseas. So no doubt these tournaments will become so numerous that we actually won't be able to go to them all. And people will be able to go to different ones, but not necessarily all at the same one. We have a venue where we can have perhaps 300 to 350 people playing football over a weekend in a tournament. There are many venues in Australia of similar numbers, but it's very hard to see us getting to a point where we can have 1,000 or 2,000 people playing simultaneously. And that represents only about 20% of all the people playing walking football today, let alone what it will in Australia, let alone what it would be in the future. And therefore, we're going to need to have a lot more tournaments in a lot more venues simultaneously so that all these people and the demand and the interest from all those people can be met. So I certainly see it continuing to grow. I think it's really important that there is a balance between competitive and social. Just like, as I said before, in the World Masters Games concept, I think there are lots of people who really enjoy the competitive element of a sport and like to play, quote unquote, to win. But I also think it's really incumbent on us to see it as being something that is available to as many people as possible and involves the opportunity for them to get life experiences where they can share with their children and their grandchildren even stories about what they've done. I remember a circumstance where regrettably one of our players in our club passed away from cancer, and without knowing it, this was going to happen. We were contacted by his children who asked if we would come to a luncheon in his honour, and they made the point to us during that luncheon that this individual's life changed because of walking football. And they said up until he started playing walking football, he was in his 70s, mid to late 70s. He had become withdrawn, more isolated from them. His conversation was about, well, what did you do today? And what about the kids? What did they do? The grandkids, what did they do today? Rather than about what he did today. And when they would ask him those questions, his answers were mundane and basic and kind of, he was hesitant about even answering some of those questions. Once he started playing walking football, they said he came out of his shell and he would talk to them, be it in phone conversations or in person when the opportunity presented itself, about the things he did. And he would even tell funny stories about things that happened to him, like he went to a tournament, he parked his car, he went and played in the tournament. At the end of the day, he came back to try and find his car and couldn't find it. He wandered around the streets for hours, ended up getting so tired, he found a bench in a park and had a rest there, woke up in the morning, went back to the tournament, played in the tournament in someone else's clothes who lent them to him. And then at the end of the tournament, went back to try and find his car, and it was exactly where he left it. And I think it's fantastic that someone can have stories about their own experiences they can share with their children and their grandchildren, so that they are a person of interest who is passing on information and knowledge and experiences in life. And really, that's part of the walking football experience to me, that people can not just have fun, not just improve their fitness, but also can strengthen the way they interface with members of their family and their friends, because they've got things they can tell them about what they did as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you mentioned fitness there again. I mean, to begin playing walking football, I mean, you don't need necessarily an athletic level of fitness to begin, do you? I mean, particularly if it's social, that you can play for, well, maybe play for this amount of time the first week and then sort of work up that way. Because as you keep emphasising, and the message is very clear, if you're playing walking football at the most common level, say socially, I mean, I'd imagine like the results, they're not going in the big grand book of records, are they?
No,
I mean,
not at all.
Would I be right in saying sometimes people don't even know what the score is? Or a vague idea.
The tradition in walking football has always been that when you play social walking football, the score is the same at the end of the game, in every game. And that is, it's a 4-4 draw. And regardless of how many goals are actually scored, which we don't really keep count of, the game finished 4-4. And it's more important to, at the end of the game, walk up and shake everybody's hand on your team and the other team, and even say thank you and show respect and appreciation for people who are playing the sport together in this way. But yeah, as far as fitness level is concerned, anybody at any level can play walking football regardless of their level of fitness. Because we have the ability to play with lesser numbers or to swap a player out. If someone is tired or needs a rest or is not able to continue for one reason or another, we can always stop the game, let that person go sit on the sideline until they're feeling ready to come back and compete. We play multiple games in the one day over an hour and a half or two, deliberately in short spells, so that if someone wants to play in the first game and miss the second one to have a rest and a drink and on a hot day, things like that, and then go back and play the next game, they can do so. And the game's designed to fit the competency and skill level and the fitness level of individuals. So one very good aspect of walking football, which I haven't mentioned as yet, is that it's a terrific sport for people who are returning from injury, from sport, or from other things in life. They can pace themselves and take their time. And because it's walking and non-contact, they can have some fun and enjoyment playing a game without the risk of re-injuring themselves as a consequence of it.
I suppose you can't totally eliminate the risk. I think that any form of football, it is a sport.
Yes.
And there's no guarantee, but everything you've said points towards, well, as you said, fun and fitness as opposed to collision and calamity.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. It's interesting because there's actually an Australian professor by the name of Harry Hubble who has worked for many, many years in Canada at the University of British Columbia. And he is passionate about football. He did a study on the likelihood of injuries from people playing walking football versus running football, and found that by reducing the speed of contact or significantly reducing the likelihood of contact, because obviously if you're walking, you're more able to avoid a collision than if you're running, and no slide tackles and those sorts of things, means that the force or the likelihood of injuries occurring has been reduced by more than 4 times. So only 25% or less, the same number of injuries occur. And of course, the force of those injuries being so much less means more often than not, people are not being hurt anywhere near as seriously. In fact, in my experience of the past 4 years of playing walking football, the only real injuries I've seen are older people falling over without any contact at all. They've stubbed their foot into the ground and stumbled and fallen, or someone has tried to run or walk too fast and perhaps have got a hamstring injury. But contusions and knee injuries, cartilage injuries, etc., have been non-existent in the sport because there isn't that forceful contact from the side that causes the joint to move in a way it might do in a normal football game or in other more physical sports.
Chris, this has been great hearing about this new emerging sport for people, or as far as football is concerned, do not know the meaning of the word retire. And I think it's great what you're doing. In my research, there seems to be walking football popping up everywhere. And that's great. Let's hope it continues. And thanks for talking to me today. It's been very, very informative. And I'm sure you'll continue to do your great work in your community, promoting walking football. And any final words?
Thanks for having me and for listening to my stories about walking football.
It's been great. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Good on you, Scott.